Hi. So you should be able to see me on screen now. The link I sent you, or the invitation on your page. So can you see me? Okay. Well, that's me. You can watch on YouTube, or you can watch via my Google Plus. Hi. You can watch on. Well, it should be broadcasting. Okay, have you got me now? Okay, Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to try a screen share of my presentation, and we'll see if that works. All right. So if I do a screen share, you should be able to see my full screen of my PowerPoint. All right. Herbal and medicinal teas. Navigating the new market, the new multi-million-dollar market is what it should say. So there's 5 viewers already. Very good. All right. So we can go back to all right. We will be starting in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. All right, it's 12 noon and welcome to the World Tea Expo rescheduled talk on herbal and medicinal teas, navigating the new market. My name is Suzanne Caddy and I'll be presenting to you today. I am a holistic practitioner. I've been a practitioner for 20 years, full-time. It is my only job, it's not a sideline. And I've been using alternative and complementary herbal medicine my entire life from childhood. I always joke that I come from a long line of witches because my grandmother was one of the people who brought Rudolf Steiner from Germany to the UK. So my interest in herbal medicine comes from many, many years of family use. So without further ado, you've all received the PowerPoint presentation in advance, so you may have gone through it. There will be lots more information I will be sharing with you in the next hour. And if you would like to ask questions, apparently the YouTube page questions will not come through to me during the presentation, but if you are watching on Google+, there is a place for you to chat and you can enter any questions you may have, and I'll do my best to answer them as we go and certainly at the end. So now to share my presentation with you. Herbal and medicinal teas, navigating the new market. Herbal and medicinal teas are not the same thing. You're all in the tea business already, so you understand that non-Camellia sinensis plants are all called tisanes. Herbal, that's something that we do in North. Not very precise. Really, the word tea should only be used for things that come from the Camellia sinensis plant. Everything else should be called a tisane or an infusion. But like teas, they are unregulated. A medicinal tea is regulated. They are regulated by the FDA, they are regulated by Health Canada, in the European Union they are regulated there. Medicinal teas, any tea that is making a health claim, a therapeutic action claim, is regulated. And there are all kinds of laws that you must be aware of and adhere to. So don't think that medicinal teas are something you can just dive into. And that's really a big part of what the wellness tea industry is about, is trying to create medicinal teas without having to match regulatory requirements. Medicinal teas have been around for a long time. 20 years ago, feverfew was one of the top sellers. Feverfew is now known strictly as a medicinal herb because it is officially scientifically recognized as a treatment for migraine. Once science starts to recognize the action of a herb, you can bet that the FDA and other regulatory agencies are watching. And that is what happened with feverfew and why you will rarely see it in herbal teas today. On the other hand, ginseng, which 20 years ago was considered absolutely medicinal, has now entered the herbal tea market. It is so common and it is so widely used that it is virtually impossible now to go backwards and regulate it. And so ginseng, even though it is a medicinal ingredient, is considered herbal. So it makes it very easy for you to use. And then we have an in-between, St. John's wort. Still popular, not as popular as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And why is that? In this case, it has to do with the contraindications. St. John's wort can interact with other medications in your bloodstream, and St. John's wort, for some people, tends to make their skin more photosensitive. What that means is that if you're taking St. John's wort in certain forms internally, When you go out in the sun, your skin will be more sensitive to sunlight. You will burn more easily. That is a problem, and that is why St. John's wort is one of those herbs that you will only see from people who really know what they're doing. So why does all this matter? Well, herbal and medicinal teas are worth billions of dollars. Look at these gross figures. Medicinal tea bags, 12% increase. This is in 1 year. This is from 2013 to 2014. 12.3% increase in medicinal tea bags, 6.6% in herbal, and herbal loose sales up 53%. That's an extraordinary amount. Combined herbal and medicinal teas just in the United States, not including sales in any other country, we're talking 415, nearly 416 million dollars in 1 year. Open for business, you should be in it. So, how are you going to move into that? Well, obviously, if you're selling herbal tea, you want to be considering adding loose sales. And if you're not selling medicinal teas, you want to be considering that. The impacts for you as someone who runs a tea company, well, what does this tell us? First of all, that herbs are not just flavor and color anymore. Educated consumers, and they are educated, are looking for information, and they are looking for things that work. Home care, self-management of health problems, this is the standard way that people are proceeding in the 21st century, and especially in the United States, where healthcare is still, let's just say, a fraught subject. People really do need to be managing their own health and self-treating, so they are. And that is why it is time to move away from the simple, let's add a bunch of chunks of fruit in there and make it look pretty and we'll make lots of money. Those days are coming to an end. The consumer wants health effects. They also want quality. They want ethics. We're all aware of the extremely aggressive anti-GMO movement. I say aggressive because there's nothing that is going to stop it. People have decided they do not want GMOs, or at the very least, they want to be informed of when they are buying GMOs. This battle is slowly being lost by Monsanto. Regardless of what you may think about it, your ethics as a business person are key to your ability to succeed. And when we're talking about herbs and medicinal teas, quality and ethics are even more important. We also have to include the media hype. Media drives sales. The Dr. Oz effect. We know that if one of these television personalities comes out and says, you've got to have this, this will help you lose weight, this will make you look more beautiful, whatever it is, millions of dollars will be spent in the next few weeks on whatever that product is. And the tea industry has benefited from some of this hype, and certainly the supplement industry has dramatically benefited. For you, making tea, selling tea, making medicinal blends or therapeutic blends, you have got to be aware of many, many different things. Eucalyptus is not the only GMO coming into the market. People are even concerned about GMOs showing up in their tea bags. That has become an issue with some of the new pyramid, the biodegradable pyramid tea bags, which are being made from genetically modified corn, and in some cases even genetically modified soy. People don't want GMO. Be very careful. Eucalyptus isn't the only one out there. Right now, if you walk into any tea shop, you will find that at least 60% of their offerings are blends. These blends are designed for fun. These blends are designed for flavor. These blends are designed for smell and color, but very rarely are they designed for therapeutics. They're also not designed to consider the interaction of all of the different herbs in the one blend. All you need to do is go online and look at herb tea blends from all the big companies. You'll see 8, 9, 10 ingredients is perfectly standard. There are many companies that use both artificial and natural additional flavorings. So these are liquid flavorings that are added to the tea and or herbs that are in the blend. It's not what the public is looking for. They are looking for high quality herbs. The tea industry, it's very old and it's very corporate and it's very, very, very well run. But herbs and the bulk of herbs that are produced for the medicinal market come from outside of the tea industry standard suppliers. You as a tea merchant are going to have to start looking elsewhere if you really truly want to capitalize on this market. Currently, the industry requires some residue testing just to make sure that there's nothing toxic in there. Obviously, there's many countries of the world where pollution is an issue. China springs instantly to mind, India, certainly some places in South America where pollution has become a big problem. If you want to get into the medicinal tea industry, you have to do a lot more. Identity analytics have become a huge issue. And if you are current with what's going on, you will know that in New York State, the Attorney General has gone to war on the supplement industry and is demanding extensive identity analytics to prove that supplements actually have what they say. Finally, the thing we really need to remember is everything we're talking about is an agricultural product. Global demand exceeds supply. Argan oil is my favorite example here. How much argan oil is being produced in the world if all of these thousands of products that are on the shelf actually contain argan? Argan is produced in only one country of the world, and that's Morocco. It takes an argan tree at least 15 years from planting to start producing oil. And overnight, Morocco went from producing a few thousand liters of argan that was mostly used for domestic consumption and cooking, and suddenly they're producing millions of gallons that are supplying personal care product companies all over the world. It's a miracle, really. Or it's not, and there's a lot of adulteration going on. Herbs are the original wellness teas. I have to admit, as a health practitioner, I find the term wellness teas not only vague, but it's the worst kind of marketing. When we say health and wellness, health refers to your physical health. Wellness refers to your quality of life. So one could say that a nice cup of tea at 4 o'clock in the afternoon is good for your wellness. That would be absolutely true. But wellness as a category, quality of life as a category, if that is what you are selling, that's great, but do not confuse wellness with health. Health and wellness are two separate things, just like herbal teas and medicinal teas are two different things. You have thousands of years and an entire world of recipes to be choosing from. If you seriously want to get into this, don't sit in your kitchen and play. Go out and do some research. Go to a library, look up historical recipes. In a few slides, we'll be looking at the kinds of health issues people are self-medicating for. And it's not just indigestion. People are self-treating very serious health problems, including things like cancer. Of course they are. Wouldn't you? From the public perspective, herbs have a history as therapeutics. Tea, once upon a time, was medicine. Tea was also food. But in the modern world, tea has health benefits, but it is primarily a beverage. It is a beverage, it is a foodstuff. And because it is a foodstuff, that is why it is exempt from certain legislation. And that's something important to remember and embrace. You want to keep your tea unregulated if you can. Interactions between herbs and the number of pharmaceuticals people are taking is a huge issue. There are also other interactions, pregnancy, allergies, all kinds of things that you, as a blender of herbs, need to understand. And as someone who's selling them, you actually need to know more than your customer. During the Christmas break 2014, I did a holiday market for a herbal tea company. It was a very different market than the company usually exhibits at. They are very well known in the therapeutic world, but not so much in the mass market world, and this was a mass market event. What was fascinating to me was that 30%, at least 30% of the people, their first question had to do with health interactions. Their first question was not, is this good for me? What does it taste like? We had samples so they could taste it. No, their first concerns were, can these herbs interact? Can they harm my baby? Can they interact with my drugs? Can they cause allergies? Can I drink too much? Or maybe I have to drink a certain amount to get to the therapeutics. This is the general public. This is more than 30% of the general public. You cannot afford to lose a third of your potential customers because they know more than you do. You need to be at least as educated, and you need to be able to answer all of those questions. Peppermint, very common. Number two most, in fact, the mints are the number two most used herbal category. But did you know that if you grow mint organically, the chemistry is completely different? The flavor's better, the therapeutics are better, but you have a slightly higher amount of ketones. Ketones are a functional group, a chemical group that is in peppermint, and it is one that we have to pay attention to because it's one that can potentially interact. So, although it's great to use organic peppermint, you do have different health concerns with organic than you do with non-organic. Now, if we take the top 20 selling herbal tea plants and we rearrange them according to their efficacy, what do they do? Well, there's a lot of them that have to do with digestion and weight loss. And again, when we talk about wellness teas, I would say 80% of the wellness teas I have seen in the market have to do with weight loss. Weight loss is an issue. Even McDonald's are suffering as people have recognized that our diet, what we eat, what we put in our mouth, how we live is critical, and absolutely our health is dependent on it. So the mints, ginger, licorice, aloe vera, great laxative, dandelion root, artichoke, it's bitter herb, senna, another laxative, cinnamon, milk thistle, fennel. These are all digestive and weight loss herbs. These are all in the top 20 of herbal, not medicinal, herbal tea sales. So someone comes in, they want a medicinal tea for weight loss. If you sell these ingredients, you could make them something on the spot. They're looking for something for sleep or stress. Chamomile, valerian, linden, and lavender. Inflammation, pain management, huge issue. Pain management, you've got cat's claw, ginseng, and then as an anti-inflammatory or to manage inflammation, acai berry, elderberry, milk thistle, sorry. Antioxidants, again, don't forget, these are all things that people are looking for in tea. Regular tea is a major antioxidant. And here we have guayusa. Guayusa is a relative of yerba mate. It's another holly family. We have ginseng, acai berry again, elderberry, and cat's claw. To me, the biggest shocker in this list was that stevia, which is nothing more than a sweetener, was number 20 in the top 20 herbal tea plants. Now, why is stevia in the top 20? Because people are sweetening their blends. People are literally adding sweetener. Now, if we are talking about tisanes and herbal teas and medicinal teas, are we really smart to be putting a sweetener in there? Are we catering to the market? Are we educating the market? I don't know. That's a fruit. I find that people want stuff unsweetened. All of my clients, as a health practitioner, I can tell you all of my clients are moving as far away from all sweeteners. That includes all the things like agave syrup and everything. They do not want sweeteners at all. They don't trust them. In fact, the only sweetener people seem to be using is honey. And a lot of that also has to do with the awareness of the problem with bees. But stevia, it's a problem, and it is going to come and bite people in the backside because much of the stevia in the market is GMO. And certainly all of the branded stevias like Truvia are absolutely genetically modified. So you need to think about this as a retailer because your customers are going to be coming in and talking about these things. And if you can make a sale because you know what they're looking for, they come in and they ask for dandelion, you can make a good bet that that's for their digestive system. You might not have dandelion, but you might have peppermint and ginger and fennel. You could make them a tea. Don't miss sales because you don't know as much as your clients. I've done the same thing here with the top 20 medicinal tea plants. Medicinal, obviously, these are herbs that are used in teas where they are making health claims. These are all from regulated products that are currently in the marketplace. You'll see the list is almost the same. Senna, ginger, dandelion, licorice, fennel, the mints. Those are exactly the same digestive herbs that were on our top 20 herbal list. So what does that mean? That means that you don't have to make it, you don't have to say it's a medicinal tea. You don't have to make claims if you are using these ingredients. Your customers know what senna does. They know what ginger, dandelion, fennel, and the mints do. They are looking for these things. They know. You can absolutely, with a little bit of thought and a little bit of care, you can be making highly therapeutic herbal tea blends without having to make medicinal tea claims. Now, holy basil, fenugreek, those could also be used as herbals, but they are not in the herbal top 20 and they are in the medicinal top 20. Holy basil is also called tulsi. It's anybody who understands Ayurvedic, you will know that this is a very common herb. But actually, to be perfectly honest, the standard basil that you grow in your garden and use for making pesto is also tremendous for digestion. It's actually an incredible anti-stress. I would put it also with holy basil under sleep and stress. Fenugreek, that is a herb that in the next 2 years is going to develop the same kind of massive profile as turmeric. It is showing many of the same properties as turmeric, little different on the flavor profile, but extraordinary. And Garcinia, well, that is the Dr. Oz effect. Garcinia Lots of claims made, mass market, huge appeal, and millions of dollars in supplements sold. But it's a tea. You could sell it as a standalone. Again, your clients will come in, they will know what it is. You do not need to make a claim. For sleep and stress, same, very similar, lavender, linden, chamomile were on our previous list. Here we've got kava, holy basil, schizandra, and passion flower also. No reason why you couldn't be using those in herbal tea blends. Echinacea, wonderful, wonderful herb. Very interesting. For years, there was research on echinacea. Obviously, from the alternative medicine world, echinacea has been lauded for its ability to support our immune system, to help us fight colds and coughs and flus, for a whole host of wonderful health benefits. And for years, 20 years ago, every scientific study that I read said, oh, it's a load of nonsense, doesn't do anything. No, it's absolutely inconclusive. No. Lo and behold, walking down the street one day after having just read how echinacea doesn't work, and a bus goes by, and on the side of the bus is an advertisement for a well-known cough syrup that now contains echinacea as an immune enhancer. So the drug companies, the big pharmaceutical companies, are doing their own research and not publishing it, but they are financing research at that time on echinacea to prove that it didn't work. Things have changed in the last 20 years. There's now so much research and it is so widely available. It's not that there aren't people paying to prove that things don't work. There are still plenty of that going on. But there's so much research and there's so many countries involved and there's so much money at stake that it's much harder for those kinds of deceptions to be kept going. For inflammation and pain, and this list, now here, this list is a little bit different. Ginger and the mints, we carry over from our herbals, but fenugreek, red raspberry leaf, and kava are not in the top 20 of the herbal tea plants. It's interesting to me. Red raspberry leaf is one of those classic herbal tea ingredients. You know, you can go back 1,000 years and look in herbals and you will find raspberry leaf recommended for a whole variety of health problems, especially for women's health issues, anything to do with the female reproductive system. And yet it's not in the top 20 herbal tea plants. Don't know why. It's a great one. It's an inexpensive ingredient. It's easy to access, easy to find, organic, and there is lots in the marketplace. For cold and flu, ginger, echinacea, slippery elm bark, and wild cherry bark. These are two ingredients that, like feverfew that we mentioned back at the beginning of the talk, these are absolutely, slippery elm bark and wild cherry bark are absolutely considered medicinal ingredients. Barks and roots, by their nature, are more difficult plant ingredients to harvest. Bark and roots, by their very nature, often do damage, if not kill, the plant that they are harvested from. I mean, you can't dig up the roots and expect the plant to live. With bark, we can take branches and strip the bark off the branches. But in a lot of cases, if really what is therapeutic is the inner bark, not the outer bark, then you are barking the tree, which, as we all know, if it's not done properly and carefully, will absolutely kill the tree. There's a herb right now, rhodiola, which is, it's what's called a boreal herb. It grows in the far north. very little bit in the northeastern United States, but mostly it's north of Canada up into the Arctic, a little bit in Alaska. And rhodiola is considered a sustainable and useful herb, and it's getting promoted quite a lot right now. It is a root, and because it grows up in the north, we understand that it has a very slow growing season. You don't have 12 months of growing when you're talking about the Arctic. You are lucky to have 4 or 5 months of growing because that's all the light you have. Don't forget, it's dark, fully dark, at least 6 months of the year. So rhodiola is considered sustainable even though it will take 20 to 25 years for a bush to be big enough for it to be worthwhile to uproot it and harvest the roots. So 20 to 25 years per bush to harvest these roots. Is that really sustainable? How many acres do we have to grow? How much do you have to use? It's a very, very complex and difficult situation. So, it's great. We can plant thousands of acres of rhodiola, but you're going to have to come back in 25 years to harvest it. And with the state of the world, we don't know what's going to happen. So slippery elm bark, wild cherry bark, these are ingredients that by their very nature are slightly harder to find. You're going to pay a little bit more for them, but they are extremely effective as medicinal teas. And that is why they've made the top 20. And of course, the eucalyptuses are also in there. Now, let's look at some dollar figures. First, if we look at the herbal column here, German chamomile, it's the only kind of chamomile that the herb tea industry seems to sell in its official capacity. There are 2 different kinds of chamomile. There's German chamomile, Matricaria recutita, and there is also Roman chamomile, which is Chamomillum nobile. Very different. Both, I think, should be in the top 20. I'd really like to see Roman chamomile up in this list. Anyway, about the same amount, 50.5 million in sales in the United States in the herbal category and 61.6 million in the medicinal category. That's over $110 million just for one herb. $110 million worth of chamomile in 1 year in one country. Okay? This is huge. But look at the mints. This includes peppermint, spearmint, long mint, field mint, all the different mints. In the herbal world, it was $37 million. In the medicinal world, it was 1,327,000. So 37 times as much sales as a herbal product than as a medicinal product. Okay? That is the only one of the herbs that sells more for its taste and look and flavor than it does for its therapeutics. It's the only one. Ginger, 5.2 million as a herb, 16.7 million as a medicine. Triple. Think about these numbers, people. How can you capture some of that market? Senna. Senna is a laxative, plain and simple. That's all it is. It's available in leaf form, and there are also senna buds. Senna is one of those herbs that you will find back in the Ebers Papyrus from 1500 BC. This is something that mankind figured out is a laxative over 3,000 years ago. It's really all it does. It doesn't have a great flavor. If you brew it hot, it's going to give you stomach cramps so bad you're going to be, you're going to be in a bad way. But brewed cold, And properly, it's a fantastic laxative. $20.6 million worth of fabulous laxative. 200,000 versus 20.6 million. We are talking exponential hugeness here, people. A little bit of senna in a herbal tea blend, and you are going to be capitalizing. You can access some of that market, some of that medicinal market. Licorice, same kind of thing. Less than $500,000 as a herb, even though it has a delicious flavor, and 5.5 million as a medicinal. Interesting thing about licorice, and in fact, all those anise, licorice flavored herbs, so fennel seed, anise, not so popular in North America. The Europeans love licorice. They have that dark, salty licorice. They have, go to Holland, there's 15 kinds of licorice. Same in Scandinavia, Germany. The Europeans love their licorice. Asia loves its licorice. North America, much less, but they obviously are happy to take it for its effects. So again, how can you capitalize this? How can you make a blend containing licorice that's going to be really attractive to the North American flavor desires, which do not include licorice, but it's going to let you capitalize on those health benefits and get some of that 5 million in sales. Dandelion, the numbers are even more extreme. 13 million as a medicinal, 200,000 as a herbal. Are you getting the picture here, people? Even lavender, just lavender. $100,000, that's it. $100,000 worth of lavender was used in herbal teas. That is it. You're missing the boat. You're missing $1.5 million worth of boat. So I think you're getting the drift here is that the public understands what herbs do. The public understands that ginger is good for them and it's good for their digestion. They may not like licorice, but they know that it's going to help their liver, it's going to help their digestion, it's a good detox, it's going to help with water, if you're holding water, if you have bloat, gas, all of those things. So that's money that you can be making. These are herbs that you can and should be using in your blends all the time, and you do not have to call them medicinal. These are all herbs that can and should be in regular tisanes available over the counter in your stores. Why not? Dandelion had an increase of $5 million in sales in 2014. It's one herb. And that's just the root that we're using. The flower tops, you can do all kinds of things with that. You can eat the leaves, but the flowering tops actually make a beautiful perfume. Just pop them off, drop them in some vodka. It'll turn purple. And in a couple of weeks, if you pack that bottle of vodka full of dandelion flowers, you will have a gorgeous scent. Very unusual, doesn't smell at all like what you'd think dandelion smells like. And then you can eat the leaves and dig up the roots and put the roots in a cup of tea. And you don't need to put any weed killer on your lawn. But $5 million in a year. This is big, people. This is big. Okay, organics. We talked earlier briefly about the importance of quality, the importance of ethics, the importance of who you are as a company. Organic tea is now 12% of the total US market. This is across the board. This includes black tea, white tea, green tea, flavored teas, herbal teas, medicinal teas. This is the lot. It's 12%. And the number is growing every year, and it will continue to grow. If you're not selling organics, consider it. And don't greenwash. Be honest. People want transparency and traceability. That's what all of these third-party organizations are about. That's what organic certification, fair trade, these third-party companies exist because people are tired of being greenwashed. People are tired of being lied to. So be transparent, be traceable. Tell your customers what you're doing. When I said to a woman who worked in the tea industry that there are two kinds of chamomile, she said, oh yes, Egyptian and Chinese. And I said, no, those are countries of origin. She said, yeah, they're two different kinds. There's Chinese. Like, no, there are two kinds of chamomile. There's Matricaria recutita, which is German chamomile. And there is Roman chamomile, which is Anthemis nobilis or Chamomillum nobile. They come from lots of countries, not just China and Egypt. In fact, China and Egypt are absolutely non-traditional countries. China and Egypt grow chamomile as a commodity to sell. They don't grow it because they care about it. They don't grow it because they've been using it for 1,000 years. For me as a practitioner, when I buy my herbs, I want to be buying the herbs from the country where they traditionally come from. That's where you're going to get your best quality. It's the terroir. It's the soil, it's the sun, it's the rain, it's the air, it's the other plants that grow there. It's everything about the environment. So when you're buying a herb that comes from a hot climate, buy it from a hot climate. Stevia, the reason that they had to genetically modify stevia was so they could grow it outside of the tropics. Stevia is a tropical product. There's not so much farming in the tropics. Farming tends to be way more in temperate areas. So they genetically modified stevia. These are the kinds of things you need to be transparent about. When it comes to organics, it doesn't really matter what your personal opinion is in 2015. I'm sorry to tell you that, but the consumer believes that organic is a qualitative standard, that it stands for a higher quality. That is often true, but not necessarily, because in truth, organic is an agricultural, quantitative standard. It is not referring to quality. Organic says you can use A, B, and C. You cannot use D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. That's all it says. It doesn't say that your plants have to be better. It doesn't say that they have to be bigger, that they have to have more of this, that, or the next thing in it. But in the public's mind, this is their way to avoid chemicals. And as such, that is a quality that they want. They also want non-GMO. I mentioned this earlier, but you can't turn around anywhere without seeing the GMO battle. It is being fought at every level of government, from city governments all the way up to federal into international. There are trade disputes going on. There are countries throwing papers at each other across boardroom tables over the issue of GMO. People don't want it, and they certainly do not want it when it comes to something that they're consuming for their health. Their non-GMO is being put on everything, whether it can or cannot be GMO. But this is something you do have to be aware of. And botanical specificity. I've given you the example of the two chamomiles. This isn't hippy-dippy anymore. Herbal teas, for a long time, they really did belong, and by choice, stayed in the hippy-dippy, new age market. You know, this was the stuff that you went to the health food store to buy because no one else sold it. You know, you weren't going to see this in your grocery store. You weren't going to see this anywhere else. You had to go to a specialist. And up until the last few years, up until really 5 years ago, that was a health food store. 5 years ago, the volume being sold and public demand changed the market. Tea stores, 5 years ago, how many tea stores were there in your town? And how many are there now? This has created unbelievable opportunity, but we need to be able to do it professionally. And things like knowing the Latin name of your plant is really important. There's many details that the consumer will know. The mints are another great example. There are mints out there that are really, I would say, too toxic to be putting in teas. But I have seen people looking for those particular mints on forums, asking for pricing on them. And they're completely unaware of the chemical components that could be causing health problems. You need to be hiring professionals or training yourself enough that you are professional when it comes to knowing herbs the way you know tea. Now, where are all these crops coming from? I mentioned earlier, this is agriculture. That's right, people. And global demand is exponentially growing. In the 20 plus years that I have been buying large quantity raw materials in the herb world, I've watched Sumatra be burnt to the ground literally 3 times. The Sumatran tiger is pretty much gone. And why? Coffee, tea, and coconut and palm oil. So if we're willing to basically trash an entire country, to burn a series of islands down to the ground in order to grow agricultural products, how can this be sustainable? It can't. It can't. The demand also means that a lot of very poor quality products are in the market. Chamomile again. Sorry, poor chamomile's getting trotted out this morning. I recently was looking for some chamomile supplies. 4 different samples came in, and they ranged from absolutely spectacular, superb, to something that I don't think I would want to feed an animal. Dramatic difference, really, from top A1 quality to the worst. And very little difference in pricing. And I know that 6-8 months from now, after this year's chamomile harvest, and after the global demand is satisfied, that there will be very little left. And come January, February, March next year, if people don't have all the chamomile they need, the only supply that will be left out there will be very poor quality. We need more suppliers. We need more volume in the market. Adulteration, again, the Attorney General of New York State has gone to war over the issue of adulteration and herbs, plants not having the constituents that are advertised, not being able to provide the therapy that they say they provide. It's expensive. You know, it's minimum $200 for the basic analysis, and you could easily spend $3,000 or $4,000 to do a proper analytic analysis of any ingredient that you get in. That's a lot of money. You have to be able to make that money back. Countries of origin, again, very important. We've talked about this briefly. China and Egypt, 2 countries for me. Again, the last 2 countries I would buy chamomile from. Chamomile is a plant that likes to take up pollution from the soil. A lot of plants do that. Wheatgrass, one of the reasons you drink it is because it will take the toxins out of your body. Well, when we're growing wheatgrass in the soil, it's doing the same thing. So with chamomile, it's absorbing toxins and specifically heavy metals. Now, air pollution in China and Egypt, there's a huge problem with heavy metals in the air and the soil. So for me, as someone who wants to buy the highest quality, how can I buy from countries where the environment is too polluted to be able to provide the highest quality? You can't. You should also be aware that medicinal grade is less than 15% of what's produced in the world. Plants that are produced specifically for their therapeutics, over and above their looks, demand more. In Europe, there's not just organic, but you will find biodynamic agriculture. And certainly the finest, the highest quality medicinal tea products out there are now opting for biodynamic over and above organic, because it's that next level up of quality. And people want health. You wouldn't want to buy, it's like buying a generic medicine. That's all fine and dandy, but where was it made? What kind of factory? Safeguards. It's a drug. You want to know what you're taking. So what's the difference with a herb? You're using it as a therapeutic, as a drug. Now, it's not a drug, but it's still a therapeutic compound. So we need to be aware of this. And quite frankly, make your origins part of your selling point. French wine, Italian wine, Argentinian wine, Chilean wine. People have preferences. I know someone who only drinks French and Italian wine. I know someone else who only drinks German wine. Okay, that's fine. That's what works for them. Make it a selling point. For me, the chamomile that I'm ordering, it's coming from Eastern Europe. It's coming from a country that is absolutely traditional chamomile grower. It's been growing chamomile in that area for more than 1,000 years. I can make that part of the selling point. I can add to my price because of where it comes from. The herbal industry, it's old, just like tea. But until a few years ago, the herbal industry and the tea industry ran side by side. Two twains, not on the same twack. But now they are on the same twack. They are in the same stores. And the herb industry has to maintain its standards and what it built up over the decades. Organic, ethical, sustainable. Wildcrafting. That has been a standard way of harvesting herbs from the year dot, from man walking upright, from before man walked upright. That's how wildcrafting is, how animals do it. That's how we always did it. But we're not careful, and we don't tend to communicate very well with our fellow inhabitants. So wildcrafting now needs to be a professional job. There are organizations that coordinate wildcrafting. There's one here in Canada. Their operating manual is over 200 pages long. Because yes, you do need to know how to take a poop in the woods if you are wildcrafting food. People sort of, I didn't think about that. Yeah, when you're a 10-mile walk from your vehicle and you're harvesting a wonderful plant and this is where it grows and everything's fine, but this is food. You have to be able to maintain quality standards and you must be able to maintain hygiene. We also have to recognize that some plants, there just will never be a lot. The example I gave of rhodiola, being termed a sustainable herb, even though it takes 25 years, 20 to 25 years for the plant to grow big enough to be harvested. So if somebody comes along and the bush is only 10 or 15 years old and they dig it up, well, you have a tiny little root. You might make a few dollars on it, but you've just wasted 10 to 15 years. So again, this can be a selling point. It's okay to run out. For years, people have been told, oh no, you must never run out, you must never run out, you must never run out. I disagree. And I can tell you that in 20 years of doing business with natural products, my clients love it when I run out. That's how they know it's the real deal, because there isn't any more. There's a finite amount of the top quality. Less than 15% in the world is the quality that is truly, truly therapeutic. Sell that point, advertise that point, tell your customers, it'll run out. You know, I've got plenty now because we've just harvested, but come January, February, March, we're going to run out again until what they harvest next year. People understand there's only one harvest a year. Some plants do not grow all over the world. Make it a selling point. And don't be afraid to charge more. If it was harvested by canoe, it should cost more. And yes, there actually are plants that can be sustainably harvested by canoe. Again, it takes a little more work, takes a lot more planning, it takes a set of rules and code of conduct and ethics, but you can do it. It can be done. And it will also give us a much bigger palette. Consumers are looking for a bigger palette. Consumers are using hundreds of herbs. If you go into a health food store, you will see herbs you hadn't heard of 2 years ago, and new ones are coming on the market every day. Things like moringa and neem. Neem and moringa, I would lay money that in the next 2 years, you are going to, just like fenugreek, these are going to be plants that are going to be on everybody's lips. Get in ahead of time. Start thinking about it now, because the demand is going to be there. Demand is already there. Echinacea, we have pretty much eradicated it from the wild. The same is true for ginseng. Ginseng, we used to have ginseng growing quite a few places here in North America, completely eradicated. If you do want to do wild harvesting, leave a note. First of all, do some learning. Each plant can tolerate a predetermined amount of pruning. We all know what happens if you prune a tree too hard, you can kill it. It's the same with a community of plants. If you take too much, the plants won't come back. So if you're going in, let's take a different herb. Let's look at St. John's wort. If you want to go and wildcraft some St. John's wort, it usually blooms end of June, beginning of July, somewhere right around the summer solstice. Leave a note. Tell your fellow wild harvesters how much you took and the date. So, piece of paper, you can laminate it, you can write it on wax paper, you can just put it in a plastic bag. I was here on this date. I took 10 or 12% or 15% of the available herb. Anybody else who comes, please bear this in mind when you harvest. 10 to 15%, you've left enough for other people. If you take 50, 60%, there is not enough for anybody else. So again, how we walk, how your ethics, your standards, your morals, how you run your company is critical and is going to make a huge difference. Lavender, it's harvested by hand. Rose hips, again, harvested by hand. And rose hips, they're used for tea, but they're also used, the seeds, which are taken out because you don't want all those little furry bits inside your rose hip for tea. It's pressed for oil. And they also make a red food coloring now from rose hips. Incredibly high in vitamin C. It's one of those herbs that has been used from the year dot, from as soon as mankind was figuring out what we could and couldn't eat. We figured rose hips were delicious and good for us. Not currently in the top 20 for herbal and medicinal. You could get all of your daily vitamin C from rose hips. Widely available, not expensive, easy to access, organic. This is a plant that people should be using. 20 years ago, it was in the top 10. Not anymore. We need to change that. So how do we move forward from here? How do we navigate this multi-million, even billion-dollar market and do it properly so that your business can thrive, so that you can benefit financially, more traditional healing plants will enter the market. The growth is going to continue. Look around you. See what trends you see. I've mentioned a few: neem, moringa, rosehip, some of the boreal herbs, some of those northern herbs that we produce in countries like Canada. Incredible interest, just exploding. The locavore movement. Is there something that's specific and local to you that doesn't grow anywhere else? And be careful. Let's not do damage to our industry because you want to make claims. You're not alone, and if the FDA starts looking at you, they're going to look at your neighbors too. The small independent companies are the most nimble, but education and standards are necessary. So don't be shy, people. Dive into a herb course, dive into more tea courses. Remember that herbal and medicinal teas are here to stay. And you can be part of it. And here's a lovely Canadian herb, also will grow in some parts of the US. It is Monarda, and that is Monarda didyma, and the leaves taste like oregano. And there you have it. Herbal and medicinal teas navigating the new market. Just see if we have any questions to answer. And this presentation will stay online for the next few days. So if you missed it or if you want to watch it again, please feel free. It'll be up on YouTube. Anything else? Email me. I'll give you my email. It is sayhello@suzannecatty.com. And thanks for joining me, people. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Take care.